Many were dealt a horrible hand from the earliest days of their lives, and frankly, people who haven't been dealt those kinds of hands, they simply can't plug into the pain of the self-loathing, the self-hatred, the abandonment, the isolation of never having the person in their lives, regularly, even daily perhaps, who actually understands it from experience. They feel it themselves, and yet they're able to reject all that psychic horror and still care for the person. They see the person, what they themselves cannot or will not see, and that is that they matter, they are relevant. The ongoing spiritual war has now flooded into the streets with the deaths of those innocent school children, the battle between the godless and those who believe. And by godless, I don't mean self-avowed atheists. I mean those who somewhere in their intellects, they acknowledge there probably is a God of some sort, some kind, somewhere who made stuff, and then that's about it. The rest of their lives are lived as though they have no relationship to him, and importantly, in their psyches, he has no relationship with them. The first is a failure of weakness in the face of great emotional pain. The second, however, that's a failure of the church, a big, gigantic failure, in fact. The truth is that many church leaders don't really care about those in their charge, certainly not who we might call the dispossessed. Every Sunday, sitting in those pews, our God only knows how many victims of horrific sexual abuses of children there are. Feel the shame. They're addicts of one thing or another who grew up in homes with alcoholics or druggies or abusers or whatever. Largely out of habit, they go to church, but not for long because they find no solace there. They're overlooked. They're not spoken to. They're not invited into fellowship. They feel as though they simply do not matter. For example, every Sunday at Mass, there are the prayers of the faithful, that little portion there just after the gospel. All sorts of things are prayed for, even individuals in the parish by name who are sick physically. In the literally thousands of Masses I have been to, only one time have I heard any prayer for those in emotional agony, feeling worthless, even to God, as a result of being unable to process why God allowed the horrible crap to happen to them as a child. The seemingly good husband, for example, who, owing to his childhood trauma, is secretly a sex addict. The young man who is struggling with drugs and, or for the moment, able to deal with it, for the moment. The man who's trapped by porn and turned into an escape to get rid of the pain that his feelings they just can't simply face. They can't process it, so you got to run over here. As he unknowingly rewires his brain, as neuroscience has now demonstrated beyond a doubt. Every one of those examples, and many more, are sitting in those pews, and yet they are completely overlooked. All that does is reinforce horrible thoughts and feelings from childhood, so they leave, and they wander into, well, let's just say, the world, completely ill-equipped to cope with the demonic forces ready to devour their lives, slowly at first, leaving them to think, I got this, when in reality, it got them. Yes, it's a choice, sure, exercising their free will, but just how free of a choice is something only God can rule on when they die and stand before him as their judge, as will happen to every last one of us. Many were dealt a horrible hand from the earliest days of their lives, and frankly, people who haven't been dealt those kinds of hands, they simply can't plug into the pain of the self-loathing, the self-hatred, the abandonment, the isolation of never having the person in their lives, regularly, even daily perhaps, who actually understands it from experience. They feel it themselves, and yet they're able to reject all that psychic horror and still care for the person. They see the person, what they themselves cannot or will not see, and that is that they matter, they are relevant. For the most part, the church has failed, miserably failed these souls, the souls created in the image of God and yet abandoned, despite their calling to a life of immortality, of joy and peace. They can't plug into that idea, that truth, for the simple reason they have nothing to compare it to in this life. They've never really experienced here, never really experienced any of it here. Not in a substantial way, anyway. Maybe a moment here or there that kind of passed for it, but boom, it's gone in a second. It's fleeting, if they ever do sense it. They have never been armed, so to speak, with the love and knowledge to fight against those lies they adopted in childhood. and now have come to frame their lives around them. There are three places that all of this used to happen. First, in a loving home environment with mom and dad. That's been blown up. In church, where the message of love and you matter being learned at home was then strongly reinforced. That's been blown up. And then school, where you were encouraged to improve and be your best at whatever you were doing, because you matter. That too has been blown up. So, where does a man today, younger or older, get the idea he matters? He just has to be lucky enough, I guess, to bump into someone who can tell him that and help him prove it to himself. That's quite the tall order for rebuilding a culture that has destroyed masculinity and manhood and replaced it with crushing psychic pain. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.